All right, today we're jumping into a really wild idea from the philosopher Jacques Derrida. It all started with an exhibition he put together for the Louvre, and it's an idea that pretty much turns one of our most basic assumptions on its head, that to draw, you actually have to see. I mean, that question, it just feels like it breaks all the rules, doesn't it? We're always taught that art is about observation, right? The hand just does what the eye tells it to. But Derrida wants us to flip that completely. He's asking, what if the real magic of drawing happens in that moment when we can't see? And boom, there it is, the core of his whole argument, from his work Memoirs of the Blind. When Derrida says the drawing is blind, he's not just trying to be poetic. He genuinely believes this is a deep truth about how we create anything. So, how in the world does he make a case like that? Well, he builds his case on two huge interconnected ideas. You can think of them like two pillars holding this whole thing up. We're going to start with the first one, which is maybe the most shocking. The idea that the artist, in the very split second they make a mark, is totally blind. Okay, so here they are laid out for us. First, drawing itself is an act of blindness. The hand is just moving way too fast for the eye to keep up and confirm what's happening. And second, every single drawing of a blind person is secretly a self-portrait of that very process. These two ideas are basically our roadmap for today. Now, to make this feel a little less out there, Derrida tells this great personal story. He talks about trying to jot down notes while he's driving, obviously keeping his eyes on the road. His hand is just adventuring out on its own, relying completely on the memory of how to form letters. He calls it the hand of a blind man. And his point is, that's exactly what an artist does every single time they put pencil to paper. So, if the eyes are out of the picture for that critical moment, what steps in to take their place? For Derrida, the answer is so clear. It's the hand. The hand becomes this new kind of eye, this amazing tool of perception that basically ventures out into the dark. And here's where it gets really cool. Derrida started looking at art history, and he noticed that whenever artists draw blind people, they become completely obsessed with their hands. The hands are reaching out, they're feeling the air, they're grasping, sometimes they're even praying. The hand becomes the real subject of the drawing. It's almost like the artist is drawing their own tool, seeing their own creative hand reflected back at them. Take a look at this. It's a perfect example. In these studies by Antoine Coipel, the real drama isn't happening in the eyes, which are closed. It's all in the hands. You can feel it. They are desperate, they're searching, they're reaching for that other hand that promises them sight. The whole story is right there, told through touch and anticipation. Okay, so that leads us right into Derrida's second big idea. And this one, well, it goes even deeper. He argues that these drawings of the blind aren't really just about the person being drawn. They're actually a kind of secret confession, a self-portrait of the act of drawing itself. He uses this Italian term, autoritratto, which just means self-portrait. In his view, a drawing of a blind person is actually a self-portrait of the medium of drawing. And why is that? Because the artist, just like the person they're drawing, is always working on the very edge of what's visible, tracing a line that comes from memory and imagination, not just from pure sight. And this artwork, it's the perfect poster child for this idea. Look at what the blind man is doing. He's pointing to his own closed eye. Derrida calls this a self-showing gesture. The man is literally outlining his own blindness, showing the healer exactly where the problem is. In that one moment, he's doing exactly what an artist does. He's tracing the shape of something he can't see to guide a hand that's going to bring something new into being. All right, now we get to the story that really pulls all of these different threads together. It's the biblical tale of Tobit. And it's just this incredibly powerful story about blindness and faith and debt, and maybe even the origin of writing itself. So the quick version is this. You've got this really good guy, Tobit, who gets blinded in this super bizarre accident. His son, Tobias, goes on this epic journey, guided by an angel he doesn't even know is an angel. He comes back with this strange cure, fish gall, puts it on his father's eyes, and it's a miracle. Tobit can see again. And here is the absolute philosophical heart of the story for Derrida. When Tobit's sight comes back, the very first thing he says isn't, "I see light," or "I see the world." It's, "I see Tobias, my son." For Derrida, this is everything. The son is the sight. He doesn't just see with his eyes, he sees the very gift of vision itself embodied in his son. So what's really going on here? Well, it tells us that sight isn't something you just have. It's a gift. It's almost like a debt. The French phrase for this actually captures the double meaning perfectly. Rendre la vue can mean to restore sight, but it can also mean to give sight back. And get this, the whole miracle was guided by an invisible angel. And what's the very last thing the angel tells them to do? Write it all down. This whole experience, born out of blindness, has to be preserved as a graphic trace, a drawing made of words.
You know, this whole idea that art and writing are born from a debt to what we can't see, it actually takes us all the way back to the legendary origin of drawing itself.
Let me tell you the ancient myth about how the very first drawing was supposedly made. The story goes that a young woman named Debutée is about to be separated from her lover. She's desperate to hold on to him, and by the light of a lamp, she sees his shadow perfectly cast on the wall. So she picks up a piece of charcoal, and in this act of love and memory, she traces his outline. That trace, born from his imminent absence, is said to be the beginning of all art. The ancient Greeks even had a word for this, skiagraphia, which literally means shadow writing. Just think about what that implies. The very first drawing ever made wasn't created by looking at a person. It was made by tracing their absence, their shadow. The artistic line is born the moment sight is about to be lost. This is Derrida's point in a nutshell. Drawing, from its very mythical beginning, has always been an art of blindness, of memory, and of loss.
And that leaves us with this one last, kind of mind-blowing thought to chew on. If the very first drawing was just the tracing of a shadow, then maybe every creative act is fundamentally about memory. Maybe every single line we draw is just a trace left behind by something we can no longer see directly. So, what if all art is just the hand trying to remember what the eye has already lost?